They said the preacher's Bible was heavier than a gun. But when midnight came, I learned what he truly carried, a scarlet sin that no prayer could wash away. Dead Man's Gulch never slept easy, but that night it tossed like a man on his deathbed. The moon hung crooked, pale as a bone, and the wind carried dust that hissed against windows like whispered threats. From the hilltop church, the old bell swayed, though no hand touched its rope. Each groan a reminder that faith here was more shadow than light. I hadn't walked into a church in years. Not since the war, not since the graves, not since I stopped believing four walls and a cross could shield a man from his own demons. But that night the preacher sent for me. And when a preacher calls at midnight, it isn't salvation he's looking for, it's a witness. The heavy door moaned as I pushed it open. The air inside was thick with wax and dust, like prayers burned to ash but never carried heavenward. Reverend Elias Gray stood at the altar, tall and spare, his collar askew, his Bible clutched to his chest, not like a gift, but like a shield. His eyes lifted to mine hollows, lit by the fever of confession. They weren't the eyes of a man preaching forgiveness. They were the eyes of a man waiting for judgment. "You came," he said, voice dry as old parchment. "I don't take kindly to summons," I answered, boots echoing on the warped floorboards. "But you saved my hide once on the trail. I figure I owed you the courtesy." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "I saved a body, not a soul. And a body ain't worth much when the soul's already forfeit." He motioned to a pew. Saturday. The wood creaked like it hadn't held a man in weeks. Empty benches stretched around me. No congregation. No hymns. No prayers. Just the preacher, me, and the shadows, leaning closer to hear his sin. Elias set his Bible down, palms flat on the pulpit as if bracing himself against a storm. His voice dropped low. "There's a girl." My gut tightened. That phrase always meant trouble. Her name's Mary Whitlock. She came to me with prayers. Prayers about a man she loved. A man who used whiskey as often as he used his fists. She asked for mercy. I told her God listens, but I listened harder. He closed his eyes, like speaking the words was worse than living them. Each time she came, more broken, more bruised, I felt faith slip. And one night, when she wept on that very floor, I told her something no preacher should say. I swallowed. "What?" "That I loved her," he whispered, the words cracking in the air like blasphemy itself. I, Elias Gray, man of God, loved her not as a shepherd but as a man. The church groaned around us, rafters settling as though in judgment. I shifted on the pew, throat tight. Love in Dead Man's Gulch wasn't hand in hand, it was chains and scars. "And the man?" I asked. His jaw clenched. "He's gone." "Gone how?" "Gone where no sermon can reach him." His eyes found mine, and I saw in them the shadow of a gunman, not a preacher. He came for her with fists. I went for him with more. I buried him under desert stone, prayed over the dirt, and told myself justice and mercy had made peace. I leaned back. The pew complained. "So you killed him?" "I killed because I couldn't endure her cries," Elias said. His voice broke on the words. "But I fear I killed because I couldn't endure my own longing." The silence that followed pressed in heavy. The bell rope above swayed, creaking like it agreed. Finally I spoke. "You think confession makes you clean?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "But it makes me ready." His hand trembled as he reached for the Bible again. "Barton suspects. He saw me bloodied that night. If the town learns the truth, they'll hang me from my own bell rope, and they'll drag Mary with me. A preacher in the noose is a sin the Gulch won't forgive." I studied him. The man who once dragged me from the jaws of death. He wanted me not as a savior, but as a witness. What do you want from me? I asked, his eyes locked on mine, hollow and blazing. To remember, when they paint me monster, I want one man to say I was also a man who loved, and if I falter, to end me before they do. My hand brushed the iron at my hip. The thought of aiming at a man in a collar chilled me worse than the desert at night. Before I could answer, the wind moaned through the cracked window, carrying grit that stung the flame. Beneath it, faint but steady, came the whisper I knew too well, the desert's voice. Sin, stay, burn. The preacher stiffened, eyes darting. Do you hear it? I nodded slowly. The gulch is always listening. Tonight, maybe it's speaking too. Elias lowered his head, shoulders sagging. Then it already knows. And by dawn, so will the town. The church breathed like a tired animal, long, rough pulls of wind under the doors, sharp exhales through the cracked panes. The oil lamp fluttered and steadied, throwing a wavering halo over dust motes that turned like slow, guilty stars. Somewhere up in the belfry, a rope creaked against wood, a sound too patient to be innocent. The front latch rattled. Reverend? A voice like a hammer testing metal. Barton. His vowels carried the iron filings of the forge. Lights burning late. You praying alone, or you keeping company with what the town's owed to see? The preacher didn't flinch. His hands tightened on the pulpit till the knuckles whitened, but his voice stayed level. Go home, Barton. The Lord isn't taking visitors. The Lord ain't sheriff, Barton said. Footsteps scuffed. More than one set. And the sheriff ain't here no more to bar the door. Law's the people now. Open up. Elias glanced at me. No blood on God's floor, his look said. It wasn't a request. It was a plea inside a command. He moved, quick for a man carrying sin. The narrow stair that spiraled into the belfry swallowed him for 2 steps. Then he paused and called, soft as breath in confession. Mary. Her reply drifted down like a thread. I'm here. I felt it before I saw her fear that smelled of lavender and wood smoke. The human kind, not the kind the desert breeds. She came down slow, hand skimming the rail. Dress torn at the sleeve where a man's grip had once lived. In lamplight, Mary Whitlock looked less like a scandal and more like a verdict. A face too brave for what it had survived. A mouth too resolute for what it still might choose. Barton thumped the door again. Hinges groaned. Old screws remembering every time they'd held back storm and man alike. Another voice rose outside. One of Barton's anvil boys. Folks seen her slip in. Widow at midnight, bad mix. Open up, Reverend. Let's take a look at your Bible. Mary's eyes cut to me, then to Elias. They won't stop at a look, she said. No, Elias answered. They'll want a spectacle. Her fingers found his sleeve. Not clinging, anchoring. Then don't give them one. Ride with me. Before dawn. Her voice shook, then steadied on an edge. You said you loved me. Love is what we do, not what we say. The preacher swallowed. His Adam's apple climbed like a man up a gallows ladder. If I ride, I damn the town. If I stay, I damn myself. You already did, she said. Not cruel, not kind. Honest like winter. The latch screamed as a bar bent. Barton's voice pushed through, slick and hot. Sheriff went to glory or somewhere worse. And now the claw thinks it gets to choose who keeps secrets. Unlock it, Reverend, 'fore we make the hinges pick a side. I stepped to the aisle, set my rifle along the back of a pew, sighted down the polished wood. The lamplight ran in a trembling ribbon along the barrel. If they break it, I said, I'll keep the first man inside from learning anything again. Elias shook his head. Not here. Then buy time, I said. Talk to them. He squared his shoulders and raised his voice until it filled the rafters. Barton, the Lord keeps house tonight. Go home. The Lord don't pay my bills. Barton shot back. Truth does. And truth says you brought a woman from her husband's grave right into God's lap. Mary's breath caught. She looked at me. The way drowning people look at the surface. They're not sure they can reach. He told you? He told me, I said. Then know it plain. Her gaze hardened, daring the room to keep holding her secret. I asked him to end it. I asked him to take the last beating for me. I put my hand on his and told him I could not live through another night. She looked back at Elias. Don't make me live through this one. The preacher's mouth opened, closed. He was built of sermons, but tonight words had to bleed to count. I thought. He stopped. I told myself God used my hands. Maybe he did, she said. Maybe he didn't. But I asked. I won't let you carry the whole sin alone. Outside, feet shifted. A murmur rolled along the porch like bees searching for someone to sting. Even men who came to hang a preacher still had ears. The wind threaded the broken panes and dipped the flame, and beneath the wind came that other sound, the one the gulch pretends not to hear in daylight, a whisper low as sand moving with intent. Stay sine bonne. The hairs climbed the back of my neck. In the war, I'd heard cannon across valleys, men screaming into night. None of it felt as close as that whisper. The desert didn't shout. It promised. Mary pressed her palms to her ears. Do you hear it? Yes, Elias said. The admission cracked him thinner. It sat in my sermons. It's waited under my prayers. Each time I said amen, it held out its hand like a debtor's ledger. Barton's fist slammed the wood. Last calling, Reverend. You open up polite, or we open up honest. Elias tore his eyes from the door and turned to the wall behind the altar, where a rack of long rifles hung like relics for a different liturgy. He lifted one. The board groaned. His thumb found a knot in the timber, pressed, and a seam winked open, the sort of seam a town builds when it expects itself to fail. A dark mouth breathed out from behind the rifles. Cool air, damp stone, an old marshal's cowardice or cleverness, depending on who told it. Elias nodded at the space. Smugglers crawled to the vestry. If we needed to pass souls out the back when souls at the front got loud. Mary stared. You want me to hide while you face them? I want you to live while I pay them, he said, her jaw set. No, Mary, number. Her gaze softened, like a blade wrapped in cloth. If you want to save me, save yourself too. The door bar screamed surrender. A screw pinged across the floor and went still near my boot like a final period. We were out of punctuation. Talk to them, I told Elias. By 20 heartbeats. I handed Mary a small Colt from my coat. Her fingers closed on it as if it had always been meant for them. Only if you must. I mustn't, she said. But sometimes, must decides without us. Elias strode to the door, set his palm to the splintering wood, and lifted his voice slow and sure. You want truth, Barton? Here it is. I loved where I was sworn to shepherd. I protected where I was sworn to preach. A man raised his hand against a woman, and I raised more. If rope is your answer, tie it honest around my neck, not hers. Silence fell outside, not peace, but the pause a pack makes when it hears hooves. Men look at each other in that space and decide if they are wolves or neighbors today. You hear that? Barton cried, grateful for any sound that wasn't doubt. He confesses. Bring him out. Bring your ledger out, too. Another voice called Jacob, the storekeep. So we can tally your iron with Lyle's silver. We heard things since the sheriff fell. Murmurs flared. The crowd did what crowds do. It split into smaller crowds. The door frame sighed as the pressure eased, then surged again, argument pumping blood into wood. Elias turned from the door to Mary, and the look between them was not church. It was the kind of vow that knows what it costs and makes it anyway. If I walk out, I won't walk back. Then don't walk alone, she said. He shook his head. If I lead you through a mob to save myself, I'm no different than the man we put in earth. The whisper climbed, sly and terribly intimate. Confess, pai hang. Enough, Elias said. To the desert or to himself, I couldn't tell. He moved to the pulpit and laid both palms on the scarred wood. As if bracing against a storm, he decided to stand inside. Barton, his voice rolled into the night. You'll have what you came for, words, but not blood, not hers. Open it, Barton said, and you could hear that he'd gambled and lost a little. Let the town see your face when it talks about sin. Elias lifted the latch. I kept the rifle low, angled to break knees, not faith. The door breathed in a crescent of cold faces and hotter eyes. Torches held their breath. Mary stepped back into the shadow of the vestry door. Not gone, only dimmed. Her mouth formed a word without sound. Live. Barton pushed one boot across the threshold. The leather scuffed pale from years of kicking at things that didn't kick back. He took in the empty pews, the preacher at the pulpit, me in the aisle with iron I prayed I wouldn't need. And he smiled like a man who mistook a cliff for a road. Evening, Reverend, he said. Let's have church. The bell above us told once no hand on the rope, just the wind and whatever rode it. Men flinched. Dust fell in a soft veil across the pulpit Bible. Elias didn't look up. This is church, he said. And I'm done preaching to keep my hands clean. He opened the Bible not to read, but to put it between himself and what was about to happen. Then he closed it again and set it aside. Tonight we talk plain. The desert leaned closer to listen. The hinges screamed once, then gave way. The double doors flew inward like lungs bursting. Night poured in torches, boots, voices, the smell of sweat and iron and fear. Barton entered first. His hammer hung in one hand, his other clenched around a torch that spat sparks across the warped floorboards. He looked less a blacksmith than a judge with fire for a gavel. Behind him spilled the mob, 30 maybe, men I'd drunk beside, played cards with, once even bled with, but now their eyes gleamed hollow, eager to see someone else fall. The preacher didn't move from the pulpit, Bible in one hand, his other lifted not in blessing, not tonight, but as if to hold the crowd back by sheer force of will. This is the house of God, Elias said. His voice filled the rafters like thunder rolling in from desert canyons. Bring fire here, and it's your own souls you burn. The crowd shifted, uneasy. I'd seen that before in war. Men brave as wolves until reminded that they, too, could be meat. Barton sneered, torchlight carving shadows deep into the scars on his face. You damned this house already, Reverend. With her. His chin jerked toward Mary, standing a pace behind, half in shadow. Widow comes weeping at midnight, and you preach with your hands. That ain't faith, that's fornication. The word cracked through the air. The mob sucked it in like whiskey burning. Addictive. Dangerous. Mary stepped forward. Fear glittered in her eyes, but her chin didn't waver. Her voice carried clear. Each word measured, like she knew the crowd would weigh them. I came here for shelter. When my husband's fists left me more bruised than whole. Elias gave me safety. When my prayers were dust, he gave me water. Water? Barton barked. He buried your man under sand. That's the only water he gave. Murmurs rose, heads turning. Doubts scratching at the mob's skin. Truth makes men itch worse than lies. Elias's eyes swept the crowd, steady, unblinking. Yes, he said, voice iron, heavy. I killed him. I buried him under the desert stones. He raised his hand against her, and I raised more. His hand trembled on the Bible, but his words did not. That is my sin. Mine alone. If rope is your answer, tie it on my neck, not hers. The mob sucked in a breath, then roared, noise slamming against the walls. Some shouted, "Hang him!" Others muttered, looking at Mary, at Barton, at one another. I raised my rifle, the stock warm against my palm. First man over the pew learns how fast prayer ends. My voice cut like a blade. The noise faltered. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was the silence of men deciding if they were neighbors or wolves. I'd seen it in muddy fields back east, when one volley turned friends into meat. Then came the whisper, not from mouths, from the broken window, from the bell rope above, from the desert itself. Sin, stay, burn. The torches guttered. A few men cursed, clapping hands to ears. Others just froze, lips trembling around prayers that wouldn't come. Mary pressed her palms to her temples, voice breaking. Make it stop. Elias's face blanched, but his jaw locked. You hear it? I hear it, I said. My throat felt full of sand. And it's been here longer than any of us. Barton seized the moment, desperate to pull the crowd back to him. You hear that? The desert itself condemns them. Hang them both, or it'll take us all. His hammer rose, torch sputtering sparks down his sleeve. The preacher stepped down from the pulpit. His boots struck wood like judgment. No, he roared. The whisper isn't God. It's fed on every noose you've tightened, every grave you've dug, every scream you've ignored. It's not holy, it's hungry, and I won't feed it more. The mob faltered. Torches dipped. Some men stared at their boots, others at Barton. Doubt ran through them like cracks in old iron. Mary's voice cut sharp. Barton shouts loud because he's afraid. Afraid you'll find his name in the ledger. Afraid you'll see who's really selling this town. Gasps sparked. Faces turned. Barton's eyes widened, then narrowed. Fury red as his forge. She lies, he spat. Ledgers forged, penned by sinners to save themselves. I pulled the folded papers from my coat. Ink glistening under torchlight. This ledger says Barton took Lyle's silver. Sold out the gulch one barrel, one bullet at a time. You want to talk sin? His hands are blacker than any preacher's. The crowd wavered, torn clean down the middle. Jacob the storekeep stepped forward, voice shaking with grief. My brother rode with Lyle and never came back. Barton, you knew? Barton roared, the sound of iron breaking under its own weight. He swung the hammer, rage blind. The torch flew from his grip, flames spitting against the pews. Before he could land the blow, Elias stepped forward barehanded. His palms caught the haft, knuckles splitting, blood dripping down wood. With a cry torn from someplace deeper than lungs, he wrenched the hammer free and flung it aside. The mob gasped. Barton stumbled back, face pale, sweat streaking his soot-stained skin. He's bewitched. No, I said cold. He's confessing. The whisper rose, louder, shaking the rafters. rattling the bell above until its clapper struck once, twice, tolling a dirge. Sin, sin, sin. Men dropped torches. Flames licked along pew legs. Smoke curled upward. Stinging eyes. Elias staggered, blood slicking his hands. He looked skyward, past the rafters, past the bell, as if he saw something waiting. "Take me," he rasped. "Not her. Not them. Me." The whisper roared, a storm inside wood and stone. The bell swung wild, rope snapping free, clanging without rhythm. The sound filled my skull until I thought it would crack. Mary cried out, clutching at him. "Don't give yourself to it. Come with me." His hand touched her cheek, tender even as his eyes burned hollow. "You deserve a man who saves you, not damns you." The mob broke. Some fled into the night, dropping fire at their heels. Others fell to their knees, begging forgiveness from a heaven that hadn't answered in years. Barton scrambled for his hammer, but I kicked it away and set the rifle barrel at his chest. Elias spread his arms, blood dripping from open palms. His voice rolled over the chaos, louder than whisper, louder than bell. "Every sin has a price. Tonight, I pay mine." And the church shook, as if the desert itself leaned in to collect. The bell tolled again, louder than the shouting, louder than the crackle of torches dying in smoke. Each strike rolled through my chest like the heartbeat of something vast and cruel. The whole church trembled, dust raining from rafters, plaster splitting like old bones. The mob scattered. Some dropped their weapons, bolting into the night like frightened cattle. Others stayed, eyes wild, torn between terror and rage. Barton alone stood fast, jaw locked, hammerless but still spitting fury. "You see?" he bellowed, sweat streaking down his soot-stained face. "The desert itself answers. He calls it with his sin." But the men behind him wavered. Jacob the storekeep shook his head, voice hoarse. "I heard no God in that voice, Barton. Just death. Maybe yours." The blacksmith's eyes darted, searching for purchase, for loyalty, for anything. What he found instead was doubt, thick, heavy, choking. Mary clung to Elias, sobbing, though her tears burned more with rage than grief. "Don't let them take you. We can still leave. Please." The preacher touched her hair with bloodied fingers, slow and gentle, the kind of touch that spoke of both benediction and farewell. "You deserve a dawn I can't give. Mine is already spent." His smile trembled, but it was there, small and human. He turned toward the belfry ladder, shoulders squared, as if the climb itself were penance. "Elias, no!" Mary cried, clutching his sleeve. He kissed her forehead, leaving a smear of red across pale skin. "Forgive me." Then he pulled free and mounted the first rung. I should have stopped him. My rifle weighed heavy in my hands, iron begging to be used. But his back was a sermon in itself, and I found I had no strength to interrupt it. The ladder groaned under his boots. He rose slow, every step echoing like a toll. The mob watched, hushed now, torches lowering, breath held. Even Barton faltered, mouth opening, then closing, rage unraveling in the silence. At the top, Elias stood framed against the broken window, moonlight crowning him silver. The bell swung mad behind, chain rattling like laughter. Wind tore at his coat, whipping it like wings. "People of Dead Man's Gulch," he cried, voice raw but unshaken. "You came for truth. Here it is. I loved a woman more than my God. I killed to keep her safe. That is my scarlet sin. The mob below stirred, shame and awe twining like snakes. No one moved forward. No one shouted. And I'll not let the desert whisper claim it for me, Elias thundered. I claim it myself, Mary screamed, running toward the ladder. Don't leave me like this. Her cry carved the air, but he was already tying the rope. For a breath, he lifted his arms wide, the way he had at every sermon, as if blessing the town one final time. Then, he slipped the noose over his head. Forgive me, he whispered. To her, to me, to heaven, to whatever waited in the sand. He stepped off, the rope jerked taut. The bell boomed once, shattering the night with its final toll. His body swung dark against the moon. The desert whisper shrieked and then fell silent, like a beast cheated of its prey. The mob broke. Men stumbled backward, some weeping, others clutching at crosses they hadn't touched in years. One by one, they fled, leaving only Barton, me, and Mary in the smoke-thick air. Barton stared, face pale. His voice cracked. He bewitched the bell. No, I said. My words tasted like ash. He damned himself, and the bell just kept count. Barton snarled, rage desperate, hollow. He lunged for his hammer, but I kicked it into the flames. My rifle barrel pressed cold against his chest. Enough, I growled. Leave before the desert decides it once more. For once, Barton obeyed. He spat in the dust and staggered into the night, swallowed by shadows. Mary collapsed, knees striking the floor. I caught her before she hit hard, her body shaking with sobs too ragged for prayer. She buried her face in my coat, whispering over and over, "He damned himself for me. All for me." "No," I said, voice low. "He damned himself long before. Tonight, he just wrote it plain." Her tears soaked through, hot against my skin. The smell of smoke thickened, pews cracking as flames took hold. I pulled her to her feet. "We need to go." She resisted, eyes locked on the body swinging in moonlight. "I can't leave him." "You must," I said. "Harder now. The desert already took what it wanted. Don't let it take you too." She let me drag her from the church. Outside, the night was strangely still. The mob was gone. The street empty save for torch stubs smoldering in dirt. Behind us, the church crackled, smoke curling like incense to a heaven that hadn't answered. At the edge of town, we stopped. Dawn was a bruise on the horizon, faint light spilling like blood into the sky. Mary's face was pale, hollow, but her eyes burned steady. "What now?" "Now," I said, turning back to the church where a man of God had chosen his own gallows. The bell swayed slow, silent at last. Now the gulch buries another secret, and we carry it, whether we want to or not. She shivered, but no tears came. Whatever grief she had left was carved deeper than eyes could show. The wind brushed past us, soft, almost kind. No whispers now, just silence. For the first time in Dead Man's Gulch, silence felt like mercy. Thank you for listening to Western Romance Stories. If you enjoyed this tale of love and danger in the Wild West, give the video a like. Leave your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more untamed stories. Until next time, may your odds hold and your heart stay brave.